Hello, Bobby. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, Martin. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, hey,
Hi, Bobby.
Are you in Coimbra?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, you don't seem very excited by it.
Because it's really hot outside.
Okay.
It's really really hot,
And you hate
So
the heat, right?
I don't hate it. I don't like it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I prefer from this point of view, I prefer the weather in Ireland in
Ah,
the summer.
yes, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Bobby's the
So
only
I
person I
want
know who's relocated to Cork, but we'll come on to that later.
Yeah, but it was for a short while. I don't know what that says about Cork, but actually I really like the place. So
Yeah.
let's not now I'm gonna have a lot of people from Cork coming over saying, "Oh no, no, I actually love the place a lot. I just had to move for different reasons."
Yeah. So you have your Mixrift t-shirt on, do you? Is that what I can hardly see? Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
yes.
This is your recently launched company, but let's come back to that in a minute. So Bobby Voicu, we met 12 or 13 years ago, I think, a long time ago in
2012.
12. Okay, 12 years ago. And
Yeah.
you were really just starting to get going with Maven Hut. And maybe we'll start there, or maybe we'll start before Maven Hut, and then we'll talk a little bit about Maven Hut. Then we'll come to Mixrift, and then we'll come to your chosen
Okay.
company. Does that sound good?
It's up to you guys. You know your podcast better than I do. So
So.
Let's hope so.
yeah,
Debatable. That's
Well,
debatable.
debatable, but whatever.
we'll find out, won't we?
We will find out. Exactly. We will find out. Right. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the short journey to what got you to Maven Hut.
So I first of all I'm Romanian. Even if I'm right now I'm in Portugal, I'm Romanian. I was born, and this is quite interesting because I was born under the communist rule, and that meant we didn't have access to consoles, gaming consoles. We didn't have access to television. I mean, we had a TV in the house, but we only had like 2 hours of TV program every day, out of which 1 hour and 45 minutes were odes to the president, right? So we didn't have a lot of things to do entertainment wise as kids. So basically, all we had was books, and um, if you went to school club, something like that, you could have access to different things. Like at some point, some ZX Spectrum clones made by the computer enterprise in Romania. And this is how I saw my first computer when I was 5 or 6 in this context, and by then basically I fell in love with it, and this is what took me. It was the common thread through my entire life. I loved computers right from the start. I programmed when I was a kid, and obviously what do you program when you're a kid? You program games. So video games were an early part of my life as well. And yeah, once the communist rule fell, then I got access to better computers and so on and so forth. And this is how I this is how I got into computers and video games. On the other side of things, I always had an attraction to. It's also a consequence of the everybody's equal communist rule. Like all those countries in Eastern Europe that came out of the communist era, people were trying to make something, and we started to learn business at the same time. Obviously, I was 12 at that moment, so I wasn't truly doing business, but I
What
started to.
age did you start doing business at?
Yeah, we were one of the few families in my communities that in the first 6 months after the communism fell, we got a videotape recorder. And I started to, with a friend of mine, we would get movies on the videotape. We would duplicate them and sell them to other people. So we already started to make some money this way. By the time I was 16, though,
That's your first entrepreneurial
yeah.
Black
exercise.
market. Black market was your first. Okay.
Well, it's
Well played. Well played.
it's what you call, or you call it black market now. It was the market then.
Yeah.
There was no colors whatsoever.
No color.
But a few years later, because I loved computers, I started to try to understand how to put them together and everything. And I at around 16, I convinced my mom to allow me to sell computers through her company, through her firm. I sold some computers. It wasn't, I think I sold maybe 3 or 4, but it was a lot of money at that time. And I started to understand.
You used the air quotes when you said company.
No, because she was a lawyer, and basically she created an entity especially for me. So it wasn't her company.
Okay.
You know, but I was 16, I wasn't allowed to have a company. But
Yeah.
So basically she created an entity for me to be able to invoice people. Because she was like, you know, it's clear that you have an attraction towards the business side of things.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. Maybe I shouldn't let you, because by that time the market started to have colors. Right? It was maybe let's not let's not get into something like this. So yeah, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was always attracted to business. And it's interesting because when I had to decide what I wanted to study after high school, it was an option between computer science and some kind of business degree. And I said, oh, I don't want to stay in front of a computer all my life.
Right.
So I chose, yeah.
How did that work out?
Yeah, actually it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But I didn't choose computer science. That's for sure.
Okay.
I chose something called, so it's the Academy of Economic Studies in Bucharest, Romania, and it was something like finance, banking, stock markets, and insurance.
Okay.
This was the entire bachelor's degree, basically, that I at some point they split, but I still have a bachelor's degree that says all of this. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah. I've never had a job in that space, but you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, I did. So anyway, I finished college. I managed a little bit for about 2 years. I managed one of my family's business. Then I left to be on my own. I went to work for somebody for a government agency, if you can believe it, for about a year and a half. And that's the only time basically my bachelor's degree helped, because that's how I got hired.
Yeah.
It didn't really help in what I was doing. I kind of did, because I needed to understand some things. But anyway, that's how I got hired. And at some point in about 2003, 2004, maybe 2005, a lot of my friends started to make money online. It was the moment when Google brought Google AdSense to the masses, and that meant you could have a website that was monetized. And that is the moment I said, okay, I think I might be able to do something there. And that's when I started to do things online. And at some point, so I built some websites. I sold some websites, most of them in English, not in Romanian, because the Romanian market wasn't big enough. Google AdSense actually wasn't making enough money on the Romanian market. And at some point, I had an online communication agency, worked with a lot of big companies, and I did some blogging. And during all this time, I kept playing games, and I kept having this thing of me wanting to start a gaming company.
Okay.
And I started step by step. I started to try to find a way to build a gaming company, and that was how, in a convoluted sort of way, I got to Mavenhut at some point.
Okay.
You
And
know.
so you came over to Dublin in 2012. It was quite obvious that, well, maybe it wasn't obvious to you, but I think to people around, it was obvious that there was an amazing team and something was going to happen. And then it started to take off. So take us through the little bit of the kind of, as Mavenhut started to scale, maybe share that with Sarah and
So Mavenhut, it's interesting because it's, first of all, when we came to Startup Bootcamp in Dublin, I was trying to get out figuratively from Romania because I was still based in Romania. I was doing business in Romania with a communication company. I was working with some of the biggest brands in the world in Romania. But I wanted a company to go outside of it. And gaming seemed like a really, not easy, but
logical.
it offered us a better opportunity of doing that, because gaming at that point, it was Facebook gaming mostly. It was the era of social gaming, and we could see that companies in any place in the world could have access to this amazing, huge database of people that were playing, no matter where they were or no matter where you were. So we were looking at this, and I remember trying to find somebody, because I didn't have a development background. I know how to program, and I used to program a lot, especially in high school and stuff like that. But I didn't do it professionally at any point. And I was looking for somebody to help us with the development part. And so it happened that a friend of my cousin's, which I helped get a job in a gaming company a few years earlier, left that gaming company with another friend, and they started their own company. So I hired them as a development team for what I had in my mind. They started to do something. We kind of missed a train on an opportunity somewhere there. And then I was present at an event in Romania at How to Web, one of the biggest events in Eastern Europe for, I think, one of the biggest events in Europe for tech. And I met a guy there that was managing the Startup Bootcamp program. And we were talking about opportunities and stuff like that. And he said, look, I'm managing Startup Bootcamp in Dublin. Why don't you come there? And I said, look, my team is not here anymore because we were unsuccessful. So we kind of split up. My cousin's friend left for Germany. The other guy found another job. And he said, well, why don't you think about it? And look, you can come. We invite you to the pre-selection. You're basically pre-selected because I think you have an interesting background and everything, but you still need to go through the selection process. Yep. Where it's like 20 teams or something like that. And I think this is where we first met, if you remember.
That's right.
And we came there. I convinced these two guys to come there and go to Startup Bootcamp as partners in a new company. And we came there. I was dressed because I was talking about a racing game, remember? And I was dressed in a racing outfit there's a video on YouTube.
I gotta find that picture somewhere. Yeah.
No, but there's a video on YouTube of about 5 minutes. But what I remember from those 2 days was that I was so hot in Ireland in January because that suit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's So after 2 days, we were, I think, maybe one of two B2C companies that got accepted in Startup Bootcamp. So that's what eventually Mavenhut would be started.
Okay. Right. And so what did you have in your head, Bobby, of like what a this podcast is about great companies. So what did you have in your head about what great looked like? What was your kind of view?
It's interesting because I don't think I was thinking about it when we talked about this, and I don't think I ever thought about great companies. I don't think I ever thought about it. I always looked at great entrepreneurs, but
Mm.
I don't think I ever looked at great companies. I felt like great entrepreneurs adjust,
Uh-huh.
and they adjust to whatever happens, whatever version of great appears in front of you, you adjust for that.
Yeah.
So I never thought of something like a great company. Obviously, like everybody in the space, then you would admire like the reinvention of Apple, right?
Yeah.
You would admire something like the early stages of Microsoft,
Yeah.
especially if you grew up like I grew up with PCs from Windows 3.1, and I went through the entire evolution with that until, well, things started to happen on the Internet Explorer side of things and Monopoly side of things. So all of this, but I never looked until 3-4 years before Mavenhut. I never looked at Silicon Valley as a model, let's say.
Okay.
It wasn't that popular, I think, at that moment. I heard of something like Mark Andreessen and Netscape and stuff like that, but it wasn't as per se pervasive as it is now, right? So when it comes to great companies, I think for me it was always, I found something interesting. Like one of the most interesting companies for me, and I was never, while I was into cars, I was never uh, interested in doing something, was Mercedes Benz.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they evolved.
What was it about Mercedes Benz that caught your attention?
Other than the fact that I like the cars, I still
That's
like them.
okay. It's built an amazing product. Yeah.
They have an amazing, I don't know if you know, but they have an amazing museum in Stuttgart where their office is. Like one of the best museums I've ever seen. And the first thing you see when you enter the museum is a horse. Because that's the first thing that you use that we used in order for us to move from one place to the other, And then you enter in another room where you see the second ever thermic engine, because they lost the first one. Nobody knows where the first one is, but that's the second one. And it's not Mercedes's second one. It's the second ever thermic engine, because they build that. And I like this idea of innovation, of adapting, of building things to last, because at some point in the 90s, it was this thing where Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes cars are over-engineered, to do more than they should and stuff like that. So I genuinely liked the company, not necessarily, but if you ask me, I have no idea who the CEO of Mercedes is, or of Daimler, actually. It's not even Mercedes. And I don't know who the CEO is, who he was at that point in time. I didn't care about that. So this is the thing. I had so many disparate things that I enjoyed without having an obsession with something, with some company,
Yeah, that's fine. But what I heard you say was about the adaptability of the entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and building something to last. So tell us a little bit about the early days of Mavenhut, trying to find, let's call it product market fit, for want of a better description. Tell us how you.
Man, the first the first 6 to 9 months of Mavenhut were painful. Let me tell you that. It was maybe the most difficult period in my life, because frankly, I didn't have anything worse than that. Like I wasn't sick or had family problems or anything like that. So that actually is one of the most difficult periods in my life, because we knew we wanted to build a gaming company. We kind of have an idea of what we wanted, but we didn't really know how to get there or how to move there, you know. So just to give you an idea, we came with a racing. We presented a racing game at the pre
You had the
startup.
suit, you had the game.
Yeah. No, but it was also the thing that we did before that we could show with that we're an interesting team, right? But I remember the moment we found out that we were selected, I went to Owen, to the manager of the program, and said, by the way, we're not going to do this. I know we presented all this, but we're not going to do this. And stuff.
Yeah,
I know I just stood in this super hot racing suit and everything, but
yeah.
I actually don't want to do this.
Look, whatever it takes for us to get there, to get our foot in the door. After that, we're adaptable. We're adjustable. And I remember he looks at me and says, why? Because whatever, it made sense what I presented. And I said, no, this made sense like 2 years ago. I don't think this makes sense now. But this also shows that most of the people that were present there to choose the teams, they didn't necessarily choose based on what we were saying, but on how we made sense of it.
Yeah.
You know, they chose based on the team and the chemistry between us and the understanding of the process rather than the idea itself and whatever we had in whatever we presented. And what we wanted to do was this thing where we saw an opportunity for at that moment playing casual games. I'm trying to see how to present it because it never got beyond that initial idea, because we also changed our idea a little bit later. But it's important to see how ideas come from how ideas go from one to other. So one of the partners in Mavenhut, in what would become Mavenhut, went to Berlin to work there. And while he was in Berlin, he saw an opportunity for 1v1 casual games that you can play for money. Like, let's say you play Candy Crush Saga or Angry Birds. We both play basically the same game, and whichever one of us gets further in the game, we put a bet of $10 each, and one of us gets the entire amount of money and everything. And we wanted to build a platform for that. We worked on it for about a month. And then at some point, one of the guys at Startup Bootcamp said, yeah, but you need to find a client for this. And we started to talk to gaming companies to understand what their needs are. And what we found out was that because it was so close to gambling, most of them were like, look, we don't have a problem with getting more money, but this can mean a lot of headaches because of the legal issues. And we said, okay, we're going to solve the legal issues. Uh-huh. So we said, we're going to solve the legal issues, but because no developer wanted to use our tool, we said, okay, let's make a game that shows how this would work. And I'm going to split the two because it's interesting. One of them was, I started to ask questions about the legal thing. And I remember every jurisdiction would have cost us around 250 to around 400,000 euros to solve everything for each jurisdiction. Yeah, just in terms of lawyer costs and stuff like that. And we were like, yeah, nobody's going to come to us and say, yeah, we're going to give you €1 million just to pay the lawyers. It was, so this is one thing. But the other thing was, we said, okay, we want to create a game for this platform. And what would that game be? Because we needed a game that was fast, easy to implement, easy for everybody to understand, that it takes us not a long time for us to do this, because we were doing it just as a use case for our company. And we said, okay, what's the simplest game that everybody knows? And we were like, well, Snake, you know what, let's do Solitaire. And it was this thing where you said, like, how do you do how solitaire, even in the name, is like you play on your own, it's alone. How do you make it play against the other? Yeah, I think there is something there. And basically, Elvis one. So it was me, Christy, and Elvis, the co-founders of Maven. And Elvis at that point says, "Yeah, I think I can do solitaire." He made a version of 1v1 in like 5 days, and we put it on Facebook. Because yeah, Facebook was this big platform. It was smaller than it is now, but it was a lot more open, as we found out later with Cambridge Analytica. It wasn't a lot more, but basically you could put the app there and it would work. And we put the app, and I remember we used Facebook ads. We spent I actually have an article on my blog explaining all of these things. We put, I think, $160 in bringing some users. We started to bring some users, and I still remember we were in Dublin around Grand Canal, because you remember that's where Startup Bootcamp was. And we actually lived in Dublin for about 4-5 months then. And we were in our apartment around Grand Canal. I was in the living room. I was playing a game, because what else would you do? And I remember Christy coming next to me, and because he was the product person, and he sat next to me and he says, "Remember I told you about the games that I've seen when I was working in Berlin, and the numbers and the stats?" And I said, "Yeah, I've never seen a game with such good numbers as this Solitaire Games has." And we were like, "What do you mean?" And it's like, the retention is off the marks. The people are coming to play the game, even if half of the game don't end, because we have so many bugs in the games, because we just wanted to see if the idea was good, right? And we were like, okay, so what does that mean? And after a few, like half an hour, maybe we were like, so we dropped the thing, because we're not going to get money to spend on lawyers anyway.
Yeah.
And let's do this. Let's do 1v1 classic games. And we just bring this social mechanic to classic games. And he was like, yeah.
And it just took.
Yeah, and by the time Startup Bootcamp was over, we had like 15,000 people that were playing the games. We had like 50 minutes per day. Some numbers, some crazy numbers. Especially for 2012.
And on the back of that, then you raised money from SOS, and
yeah.
The business got up to, how much was it doing at its peak? What sort of revenue was it doing at its peak?
We were doing more than. I've never said that. So
Now's your chance.
But no, I'm still not gonna say it. But let me tell you this: we were by the time we sold, we were spending more than $1 million a month in ads profitably.
Okay.
So we were, and that happened like what, 2.5-3 years later.
Yeah, incredible.
Did you ever run a comparison versus your growth and GDP's decline? Could you track where users were coming from and then see the GDP of the country just to buy
we were thinking about that, but we never we were never as big as Solitaire, the original one, ever was. I mean, at the most, I think we had, at some point, we had like 2.5 million people playing the games every day.
Wow. Which country do you remember where most of your users were coming from?
US, but around 35% of the users were from the US. Around, I want to say 25% were from Latin America. And this was by design, because we launched the game initially in Latin America, because it was easy to translate for the entire basically for 3 continents. Because if we include the Mexico and the countries in North America, it's like 3 continents. So we it was easy for us to translate into Spanish and have access to this audience, which was westernized enough for us to understand how Western audiences, because the Latin American the Latin America countries were pretty cheap in terms of user acquisition, like really cheap compared to anything like US, Canada, European Union, Australia, and European Union. We were never big in the European Union because of the language issue. Because you need to target at some point. Yeah, we had 15 languages and so on, but we were never. It was never something that we put a lot of effort into because we were already big in the other markets.
Right.
So very few companies get to that level of profitability and growth. And apart from the financial metrics, what other metrics did you use, Bobby, as you were going through that 2-3 year journey?
In terms of product or in terms of company?
Just in terms of managing the business, like, aside from obviously profitability being key and user growth.
Actually, you know what? In the beginning, profitability wasn't that much of a key. We became profitable by, I don't want to say by mistake because it was on purpose, but we didn't target profitability. Because one of the things that you learn early in this kind of so let me, because it's an additional idea that I want to add to this, but basically profitability in a VC backed company, it's not necessarily the best focus for the company, at least in the early stages, because that's when you refine your product and you and when you push as much growth as possible. So I don't think so. We became profitable truly by a consequence of us doing the best and learning and being lucky. I always think that you need to be lucky in a context to get successful. So I think at some point we got lucky of a combination of things that happened during that time. So yeah.
What did you need investor money for? So, because I mean, you were really early into revenue generation. So, what kind of capital? I mean, okay. So what were you seeking capital for? What type of investors did you talk about that? Who did you bring in? And
first of all, gaming in general is a hit-driven industry. You're as good as your hit. So it's like movies, it's like music, right? I don't really know those industries like music and movies well enough to know how they work. I feel that we have in gaming, we have a lot more access to stats, to information, because we take it right from the horse's mouth. Basically, we have stats in the game. We don't need to ask people, do you like this? Do you like this? We see what they do. So I feel that this type of businesses, either you have this drive to create this specific game and you do that and you don't raise money and you grind it and you grind it and you grind it for 5, 10, 15 years sometimes until you basically make it. Or the way we do it is like, how can we make that period of grind as short as possible? And this is why we need the investor money. Because also gaming is also it moves really fast. And this is one of the reasons why I think we were successful, because we were on a, let's call it, dying platform, because Facebook gaming was slowly going out of fashion while mobile was growing. So the bigger companies that used to be on Facebook games were starting or already moved to mobile. So it was, for a specific period of time, it was a gap in the market on Facebook games. So this is when I say we were lucky, because I feel that if we got there in 2009, 10, the years of Farmville, of Zynga, I don't think we would have been as successful, because it wasn't the the gap of content that these companies living left in their trail.
Mm.
You know, so yeah,
So you raised money for speed, for one, right?
and for the speed of experimenting.
Mm.
Because basically we were a company that wanted to test as many game mechanics as possible to be able to understand whichever works. So for a while we didn't see, you know, whenever people raise money, they don't see their runway, they see the runway in time. Like, how long will this runway be enough for, you know? And you need to understand it like this initially. But for us, the runway, we saw it in terms of how many prototypes we could get out the door. You know, we didn't see, like, we raised 550,000 euros basically in those first 6 months. It was in different stages, but in total it was 550,000 euros, which at that time was around $700,000, which was a big amount for a European company at that time. And we looked at it and we realized that we could get maybe 6-7 prototypes out the door. And if none of those would have been successful enough, we would have probably needed to close doors. You know, we were lucky again that Solitaire hit it okay-ish. This is why I was saying when you said about money, and because we started to, just to give you an idea, in the first year of revenues, we started the company in February 2012. And by the end of 2012, we made, I think, around $6,000. So
Right.
not really, not a really big amount of money. But by the end of the next year, we made $2 million in revenues.
Yeah,
So
that's a huge jump.
yeah. So, but this happened when in May or June of, I think it was June 2012, 2013. I remember I was in the States looking for the money for the next round, basically, because we had some games that were making like 30. So our games were making, I think, around 30-40K a month, right? And we were paying the team with that money. We had no marketing money. We were using the investment money for marketing, but at least we could pay the team with our revenues. And one of my partners, Christy, which was the product guy, he basically said, okay, we have this game. We had 2 or 3 at that moment, but he said, we had this game with these numbers, and it's clearly we're not monetizing it completely. So he stood on it for like 2 months. He tested some shit. Can I say that? We tested a lot of things.
So, yes.
We tested a lot of things that would work. And just to give you an idea, we started May. We had like 40,000 in a month. And by the end of September, we were at around 400,000 in just 4 months. And that's what I was saying about the heat-driven industry. Once you get it, it's not like a hockey stick. It basically hits you in the head. It's so straight. And by the way, with all these successful it's successful, but I know gaming companies that went from 50,000 to millions, tens of millions in like 6 months. We were not there. So this is what can happen. So this is why we saw a runway in terms of experiments, because this is how big the difference is. It's not because when you think of startups, especially of SaaS companies, you think of pivots, but it takes time to find out. In gaming, especially when you have a platform as big as Facebook was at that time, with all the tools that we were allowed at, with ads and everything, we could move incredibly fast.
But you
And
could
this is
also,
what,
it
sorry.
sounds like it's a pretty volatile industry. Like you could grow incredibly fast, but you can also be yesterday's news pretty fast, right? I mean, you can decline and
Yeah.
say nobody's interested in you, then the next game comes out and the next thing happens. So it's not like
I feel that if you get it into your head that you're in a heat-driven industry and you adjust for that, you can be a long-term company. And we'll talk at some point about maybe about King or something like that, where you can see that evolution.
Okay.
You know,
that's probably a nice segue, because I'm just conscious we've got about 15 minutes left, and we want to get into King and we want to get into Mixrift, but let's talk about King then first, if that's okay, and then we come back.
Yeah. So
yeah, just to kind of give a bit of an intro to that, I mean, this is different to the other conversations we've had, where like what you're basically saying is it's a hits-driven business. We don't really know what are going to be the hits. We have to create a system to get enough experimentations and things into them to get enough cash generated to then build a platform for the next game. So you're always trying to build, you're harvesting what you have, but you're maybe always thinking to the future a little bit. So talk us a little bit about why you picked King as your ideal company, your great company.
Look, first of all, it's not my ideal company. It's I think they made some mistakes at some point. I think at some point they went with their experimentation a little bit too far. Instead of creating, they started to blatantly copy, which, by the way, it's allegedly. because look, I don't know when it happened, but you can
your mom's
see
proud. Your mom is proud right now.
Yeah. My mom and my sister, by the way. So this is the thing. I mean, at some point, so first of all, you need to understand that gaming is about copying. There's no new idea when it comes to gaming. Almost no new ideas. Even new ideas, if you look at it, you'll see that they took a concept that already existed, right? So we took Solitaire, which is, by the way, Solitaire is an idea that Microsoft had to be able to teach people how to use the mouse on Windows, which is a copy of a game called Patience, which which used to be played in early US. Well, I don't think it was even US, from a game called Patience. I don't know how do you say it in French, right? So it's or Spanish, Paciencia. It doesn't matter. So all of these things, it's actually, you can see that in whatever happens in the gaming world right now, where somebody comes with a concept that learns from another concept and so on and so forth. So copying ideas and mechanics is okay, but at some point when you can show that it's the same, basically it's the same, just you change the paint, that's an issue. So it's not my ideal company, but during that time, it was my model company for the way that they grew. So talking about this, while Maven Hut's evolution was short and explosive, King's was actually a little bit different. They started in 2003, I want to say. They had a gaming portal on the web where they put flash games, small ideas, but they built 200 games for that portal, which took from one of those, the ideas, they took it and put it on Facebook Games. And based on that idea, they built a game called Candy Crush, on which they brought on top an adventure layer where you could go, basically you needed to save the princess, something like that, and you went from level to level to level, and that was actually your trip through the world. And by the way, when I started to play it had like 100 levels. Now I think they have like 2,000 or something like that. So that trip proved a lot longer than anybody thought. So all of a sudden, they take, and everybody's like, oh, you know, that idea, and especially in gaming is like this, like overnight success. And you realize that overnight success for King actually took around 10 years for them to be at that level of success. And that could have never happened without them making 200 games and seeing what works. So for me, that was the model to follow. And that basically went to Maven Hut, where we talked and we said, okay, we will never be successful if we say, oh, we want to build the next, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption, or I don't know what huge gaming franchise. We could never do that. We didn't have 3 years to sit and try to understand how it works. You know, maybe at some point in the life we thought we might be able to build this, I don't know, crazy AAA game, and we're gonna put 3 years of our lives into it. But that wasn't the moment.
Hmm.
So it's a really interesting. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and you know, I'm trying to understand the market. Like when you think about this built to last concept of these companies, and like King is, and I see King has also it IPO'd, but then it made some acquisitions, and it just doesn't seem to me.
And it was sold in the end. Somebody bought them from the public market. Yeah.
But that's kind of, so talk to me about that. When you think about maybe your company now as a transition to that, I mean, are you thinking how many gaming companies actually exit versus they just have a period of popularity and then, you know, they don't all make it to levels, 2000 levels, you know, it does not everything has that hard of a hit. And so is the idea that you just make as much money as fast as you can off of any hit that you get, but you don't actually expect to sustain that hit,
yeah,
you know, or exit that hit to a buyer or something?
I feel the world is a little bit different right now than it was then. Now we have what is called live service games, or infinite games, or never-ending games like Fortnite, which started in 2016, I want to say, and they're still going pretty good right now. They made, I think, more than $5 billion. Those are games that basically you keep updating and updating and updating, and you keep bringing new players and new players and new players, or keep bringing the same players back. I play one of those games, and it ate 1 year of my life during COVID, which is called, it's specific, it's Call of Duty Warzone, which is a battle royale game. I was playing, I'm not saying I wasn't good at it at any point, but I was playing, I had days where I would play 10 to 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It also helped that I wasn't doing anything other than that. I wasn't working.
It was a global epidemic, so yeah.
I also was a few years after selling the company where I was semi-retired. So I had a lot of time, unfortunately, because in the end, if you look back, I was like, what? Yeah. But these kind of games, so I think the business model is changing. And you can see, if you look at the market, a lot of companies are trying to launch that kind of infinite life games or live service games, because those kind of games actually give you a longer life. Also, the other model is obviously franchising. And I'm sure you heard of all these sports games like FIFA, which is not called FIFA anymore because Electronic Arts became so big that they told FIFA, you know what, we're going to be successful without FIFA, without the FIFA branding. And now they're EA Sports FC or something like that. I never get the EA and FC, which is where, but they have sports or football. Look, I don't even, but it's basically everybody calls it still FIFA, so it doesn't matter. But they found this success model where every year, without break, they have FIFA 20, FIFA 21, FIFA 01, FIFA 02, FIFA 03, and so on and so forth. And they make, look, Call of Duty, Activision, basically it's Activision Blizzard King, because in the end they bought King from the public market, and then Microsoft bought ABK. for almost $70 billion.
Wow.
This huge company called ABK, Activision Blizzard King, King is on its own, and I think they make several $billion a year, but I don't know exactly how much. You have Blizzard that has World of Warcraft, they make another set of billions there. And then you have Activision, whose almost entire focus is creating every year a new version of a game called Call of Duty. Which is something with guns and shooting, and in different times in the future, during the World War II, in these days, they always change that.
Okay.
And they put on top of this, they put this live service game called Call of Duty Warzone, which was launched right when the pandemic came, and it exploded overnight, even unexpected, even for them. And you could see that in how they couldn't update the game, because I don't think they thought they need to update it after 1 year. So this company that has all these three things is worth $70 billion, because people come and buy that game over and over and over again. I know people that basically have gaming consoles like PlayStation or Xboxes that are Call of Duty machines. They don't care about anything else. They bought that. They paid $500, $600, $700, whatever, just to play Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. So this is the
revenue is like
type of
big farm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
it's
Johnson's
like
revenue number.
The only thing, in my opinion, the only thing is that gaming is a vitamin, while big pharma is kind of the pill. You know?
Well, I think there's a few distinctions. Yeah.
I mean, so yeah. But again, you get into the other part of things where addiction is bad no matter what it is. I mean, me playing 10 to 12 hours a day, that was stupidly stupid.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
How did you get out of that? What happened? You just decided at some point, or did somebody?
At some point, I was like, "What the hell?
What's going on?"
I'm
where did January go?
I'm retired. I don't want to die in a few years.
Yeah.
I still want to do a lot of things. And then we went sailing for a few months, and that helped me because I didn't have the console with me.
Bobby, this could go on for a long time, and it would be really enjoyable. But we haven't got that much time left. And what I loved about the prep for this was you were the only person that kind of pushed back and said, "I'm not that interested in great companies, and like, what are they?" And you took a lot of time to pick your company. And what I got out of the conversation today was really about going.
By the way, we didn't talk about Mixrift.
No, we'll come to that. I'm just trying to lead into it, but I knew you wouldn't let me get away with that. But we came from the idea of, a couple of experiments that you don't know what's going to stick, to more of a system whereby you create a platform which generates cash to then give you enough runway to create more games and to create franchises and create sustainable businesses that IPO, bought by Microsoft, have these amazing franchises, like kind of like the Hollywood model of, they have a hit and then they do several sequels, and creating this sustainable, money generating platform. And when you think about your next chapter and Mixrift, tell us a little bit about like what you have in your head, again, kind of what's going to make it great, what's going to make you proud of it.
So Mixrift is I wanted to say a whole different business, but no. It's basically,
you already said to all the listeners that you copy the gaming industries. So who did you copy from Mixrift?
We copied the model. We copied the model of King, of Supercell, of Mavenhut. We understood that, again, we need to. So Mixrift, we copied the model, but I need to assess a little bit. the biggest difference between Mavenhut and Mixrift, and this is really, really important, is that Mixrift is doing mixed reality games. We might touch a little bit of VR, we might touch virtual reality, we might touch a little bit of augmented reality, but we're doing this mixed reality thing. When we got with Mavenhut, we were on a dying platform. Because that's where our skill set was Facebook games. And by the time we sold the games, because the company, by the way, we didn't sell the company, we sold the assets. We were slowly moving to mobile, which was kind of mature already. You already had the big companies there already. You had King, you had Rovio, which made Angry Birds. You had the bigger companies starting to put games there. Companies like Ubisoft buying companies like Ketchup to get their presence there. So you already had a mature market. The XR, extended reality, which is VR, AR, MR, market is still early. Mm-hmm. The people that right now have headsets are early adopters. The market took longer to mature than people expected. So in my opinion, right now, the biggest bet is not necessarily on how you can make amazing games on the platform. I think that right now the bet is who understands first, or among the first, what the native mechanic for the platform is. Like, let me give you an example. Did you ever play what's his name? Angry Birds? At least tried.
Tried it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really specific gesture. You pull it's natural. You pull the finger back and you remove it. That couldn't happen on other device than a screen that you can touch. You can play it with a mouse, but it's not as intuitive.
Yeah.
That is a native mechanic. Mm. Whoever gets that mechanic because it's not going to be one, it's going to be multiple on mixed reality, because on VR is we already seeing specific mechanic, but whoever gets that for mixed reality can grow not only inside the platform, inside the market, but also with the platform, with the market. Because we're at the beginning of the wave. At some point, that wave that raises all the boats is coming. Mm. It can take 2-3 years, it can take 5-7 years, but it is coming. We're already seeing the number of headset devices sold is outgrowing devices like the Xbox. There's a few things to talk there, Yeah. So we're having this kind of growth, The headset, especially the Meta Quest headsets, are overtaking smaller consoles. So a smaller console used to be somewhere where you can make a business to live off.
Yeah.
We're seeing that in the space right now. We're seeing games like Gorilla Tag, which is such a native mechanic for VR that you could not play a game like Gorilla Tag, which, by the way, it's the tag game when you're like a gorilla and you do this, and this is how you move. You move like I'm not even kidding you. And you see
It'll be hard for the listeners to fully appreciate this.
Yeah. The listeners, you're doing the move like skiing.
Okay.
Like skiing, and you move around. And the first time I played it, I did that and I fell on my face, not physically, but in the game. And during the same time, the other gorillas were running around like crazy around me. And I was like, oh, that seems easy. It isn't. But that mechanic, once it became known, that game made $100 million in 3 years in revenues.
And what were the gorillas doing on the ski slopes?
They're not on the ski slopes. That's the move. It's similar.
It's similar. Okay. Right.
This is the move. There. This is the move you make, like pushing on the sticks while skiing. You know, this is the move you make. I was explaining to the people
Yeah.
that don't see me.
Two
Okay.
different
Moving my
ideas.
hand.
Two different
So
ideas.
this is about basically, this is about native mechanics built into physical movement, but now you have this headset on, so it's
Headset.
a
Yep.
lot of balance and coordination that's coming in instead of sitting and just using your finger. Is that
and also you have two controllers separately. You have you have that, but you can look behind physically to see who's behind you.
Yeah.
You cannot do that in a game on a flat screen.
it's 3D?
Yeah.
It is not, it takes over your space. And by the way, you have no ideas how many times I hit my knee, my head, my feet into different things as well.
Is anybody, yeah, you might need to call your mother and your sister about this one too. I think in US you might get sued for everybody who walks into their couch or who,
you're not gonna get sued because
broke your
it's
mother's
like
days.
you tell them in advance that they need this kind of space, but also mixed reality doesn't take over your environment. Mixed reality, you're in your own room, in your own office, in your own living room, and all of a sudden you have like one of our games from Mixrift. You have a 3D puzzle, you have a big object, let's say a vase that breaks, and you need to pick up the pieces and put it together, and it's really, really nice to do it. Or another one of our games, it's your room, and all of a sudden that wall, and I'm showing a wall to my left because that's where I play, it becomes a portal, and you have a horde of monsters coming towards you, and you need to shoot them. And if you don't shoot them, they basically reach you on your chair or wherever you are, and they touch you. You don't feel the touch, Frank. You don't feel the touch, but the reaction, even if your brain knows they're not there, it cannot stop from reacting and cowering when that monster is coming onto you.
Yeah, I have a request as we're closing out here. If you can get people excited about picking up a broken vase as part of a game, a vase, right? Like you break the vase, you pick it up. Can't you make it that it is your actual environment and put the thing on your kid. Now pick up your room and it's fun. How do you do that? How do you do that one?
Yeah.
I think that actually could be done.
Okay.
I think that actually could be done. All you need to do.
You're probably guessing from the questions that neither Sarah or myself are gamers. So thank you for patiently explaining both the business and the mechanics and the technology. And what I took away from this is just the sense of fun and enjoyment in what you're doing.
It is
exciting a team and building great teams around you as you've done in the past and you're doing at the moment, and not losing sight of that while making money, making sure you're having fun.
And one thing before, I never built a business on my own.
Yeah,
never. I've had several businesses. I sold some of them. I've never built a business on my own. I know people that do, and I'm looking at them in awe.
Yeah.
But I never did. I could not build this business without I could have not built Maven Hut without those partners. I couldn't build this business without the people that I'm working with right now. Which, by the way, my partners in this business were employees of Maven Hut at some point.
Yeah. The band's getting back together. So look, it's been a lot of fun and we've run over in time, but it was great. And I think that's a great way of wrapping it up. So thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks for taking the time to invite me, first of all.
We'll be in touch. Look after yourself.
Thanks, Bobby.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.